Hi guys, this is Jose Trujillo. Once again, I'm coming to you from my art studio, and today I want to talk to you about something that I believe it's very interesting. I've talked about it in many different videos, and it's still one of those things that it's hard to pinpoint because it shows up in very subtle different ways, and it really has to do with self-image, and it's hard to tackle because we all think we have a special case, and this is about fear and how to get out of it. I experience it on a daily basis, and I know that a lot of artists, of course, experience it too. I experience it in subtle ways, but nevertheless, it shows up. So, for example, a lot of people say that I create a lot of work, right? Which I do. My gig is create vast numbers of work. I like the Picasso approach. I like the prolific gulp, seize the day. I like that approach. It's me. Maybe that's not your gig. Maybe you create one artwork piece, one huge artwork piece, or one very detailed, kind of Dali-esque or whatever hyper-realistic art piece. Maybe that's your gig. It doesn't matter. It comes down to time. So, effort, right? So, fear shows up in different ways, right? It might be procrastination. It may be, I don't know, the technique is off, or the style is off, or the colors are off, and perfectionism. It may be a series of things. It doesn't matter what you call the little monster. It's still the same bastard. It's fear. So it really has to do with self-image. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to put how we see ourselves in there as opposed to the heart, right? Which is the action. That's just how I separate it. This is the bastard that just talks and thinks, right? And it's the mental chatter, and this is the actual doer. This is the pounder, right? It pounds. This is just hot air. This is the one that matters. Anyways, you need both, right? But when it comes down to creating artwork, of course you need all heart. So. Or more of it, anyways. So now that we identified, right, fear comes out. Maybe you're creating a piece of artwork and you're like, oh man, the colors are off. Oh, blah blah blah. Or maybe you show up to the studio daily, right, and you don't have a procrastination problem, but you may have a production problem. This is something that I didn't find out until later. I still struggle with this one, and it's just a smaller monster, but it's the same bastard. It's fear. So I show up every day to work. Maybe this is you, right? You show up every day to paint. Pa, 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 you're painting. I call it pa, pa, pa. That means movement. So you're painting, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this bothers me. This color, or the colors are not coming out right. But you're still creating work, right? The problem is that maybe you could create more work, or you could create better work, or you could create something else besides that work. Maybe your gig is you create one great piece, or you work on it for a couple of hours, and then you have to move into to Facebook or some other platform, or whatever, however you communicate to your clientele or your collector list. But you don't, and you still work, right? But you don't. You could do more, is what I'm trying to say. You could go deeper, you could go wider, but you could do more nevertheless. But you don't, because it happens that this happens to me. I'm talking from a personal experience, because it's a production problem. What happens is, I call them bumps. You show up to work, yeah, you're working every day. You show up to work, but there's this little things that are always bothering, and this ones, you can't never just plow forward, because it comes back to self-image. The color didn't come out right. Well, who are you trying to match it for, right? The thinker, right? The size is not right, right? Or the prime, I should have primed more. This is bothering me. Who are you trying to please? You're trying to please the thinker, right? It always comes down to that. So the way it works is that you're overthinking. Of course, that's stage one, right? And you imagine all these scenarios, or however you want to call it, but it's scenarios because it's overthinking. Okay, that creates fear, right? And because fear is arised out of, I don't know what to do next, because you created all the scenarios in your mind, but only action can solve them. And action breeds the answer every time. It's like this book that unfolds, but we don't know that. We kind of figure that out, and then as we're working, the mind starts messing with us again, and we're like, how am I going to solve that? Don't worry about it. Just keep going. It'll come up. But we don't. It's easier said than done, right? So you overthink, and then the fear arises, and then what happens later? You paralyze because you don't know how to fix that stupid perceived problem that just happened in the mind. So how do we get out of fear? I get asked this question over and over. How do we get out of fear? I ask myself this question every day because it shows up for me also in subtle ways. I know my potential, and I know I can produce more. I can go wider, and I can go deeper in my work, and I still struggle with it. I've managed to make it smaller than what it was, but I don't know of anyone who's actually made it go away. I've never heard of it. I just know that regardless of its little chatter, mental chatter, the little mental chatter that you're not good enough, you're not a good artist, even though you know you're a good artist, even though you're selling your work, even though you're getting commissions, and people tell you you're great, your stuff is great, and you know your stuff is great, but you go through these doubts. Really, what happens is that you want to make this fear, this little bastard that I said, you want to make it smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point that the voice barely squeals. It's no longer loud, right? Where it stops you. So how do you do that? The only way to do that is to continue creating action. There is no other way out of it. A lot of people talk about, especially when we're talking about work, a lot of people talk about, do whatever you want, meditate, blah, 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 all those things. Of course they help, right? You do your mantras. This doesn't mean anything. Well, it's one of the mantras I like to repeat. And regardless of your religion or whatever, what you're trying to do, or your spiritual practice, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create space in the chatter. Because there's this chatter going on in your mind. I'm not good enough, And it's subtle. You're painting it like, oh man, this doesn't look like what I did yesterday. I'm guilty of that. This happens to me often. Oh man, I don't feel like I'm in the flow right now, and all this, this little chatter that some people, it's very loud. Some people tell you, just give up, dude, get out of the studio, or go get a real job, or some, I don't know, whatever. It's louder for some other people. It used to be very loud for me. It's minimized, and the way that I minimize that is by creating action. It is only action because the mind knows nothing of action. So the mind wants to go as far as possible in scenarios, but once it doesn't know how to continue unfolding what's going to happen next, and what's going to happen next, and what's going to happen next, it will paralyze. Because the only way to find out what's going to happen next is by taking a physical step forward. It's the next brushstroke will lead you to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So anyways, I don't want to make this too long because I already made it long. But I just want to tell you, the way to get out of fear is through action. Do not believe your mind. Your mind is intelligent, of course, blah, blah, blah. We need it. But it's a very judgmental piece of work. And it's great to protect you. It's not that it's something bad. It's there to protect us, right? The mind is a tool. And it wants to protect us. It wants to get us away from harm. But when it comes down to doing something, you want to go on the direction of that fear. Of that, oh, there's something wrong there. Okay, I don't care that there's something wrong there. I'm still gonna do the damn brushwork. Or I don't care that I didn't have red today. I'll use blue. I think Picasso said that. I think Picasso said when I don't have blue, I use red. I think he meant that. I don't think he was meaning something else. I think he was trying to say, I go forward anyways. I don't care. I won't stay stuck. So I'll leave you with that. The way out. I know I made this one long. I'm sorry. But it needed to be said. The way out is action. You're not going to think your way out of this one. You can't think your way out of nothing real. It's action. Thank you so much for watching this, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.